Andrew McGahan for the MacLife.com here in SPG Concord, standing alongside Artem Lobov, who's just finished up an intense session on the pads with Roddy here. First of all, working with Roddy, a lot of the guys have been talking about the improvements they're seeing in the striking. Is it the way that he's breaking things down? Is it the shots that he's shown? I don't know whether it's the success of these guys, but it just seems to be a big thing at the moment.
You know, you often see a lot of guys that are good coaches, and then you see a lot of guys that are good fighters. And very rarely you see somebody who's been a very, very successful fighter, very good, very smart, very intelligent fighter that decided to become a coach as well. And this is one of the privileges we have here at SBG, Roddy. You know, he's been an amazing fighter. He understands the game like no one else. He's able to break all the shots down. He knows exactly what you mean when you say something. He knows exactly what those shots feel like in a fight. And obviously, you see the benefits from working with him in all the guys' games,
Is it interesting just from having maybe trained with him as he was getting ready for fights and you were grinding on the European scene as well, to see now maybe what was all going through his head as he was doing that, now that he's able to explain it to you in a coaching capacity?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable to be able to actually share, his knowledge. And I'm just happy that, I don't have to be sparring that motherfucker anymore. He's dropped me plenty of times with those knees. Actually, I was one of the main sparring partners when he was getting ready for Wilson Hayes. And he dropped me with knees in that camp. I stopped counting after 100. So, it's good to not have to go through that anymore.
So we're a couple of weeks away now from the biggest fight of your career. I think it's fair to say that. As a guy, as we're talking about the grinding on the European scene and coming up, surely you were looking at people like Cub Swanson and thinking one day I would do anything just to be able to test myself, to fight you, to show how good I actually am.
Absolutely, I was always looking at all the guys in the UFC, including Cub, thinking I could hang with these guys. I wish I had a chance to, prove myself. And now I have that chance, so I have everything to gain and nothing to lose from this fight.
There was a bit of confusion. It seemed like a main event was added after you guys had been announced and you had signed an agreement for 5 rounds, but it's stuck at 5 rounds. How happy are you that it is solidified, that it is the main event, that you've got 25 minutes in there with him?
Absolutely, I'm happy that it's going to be the full 5 rounds. In many of my fights, I felt, that I had lost decisions, and in the past, I felt that if I had the 5 rounds, I probably could have won them. Sometimes, especially the grinding type of guys, they just have to win 1 round and then barely edge the second, and that's it. The fight slipped away, and even though their energy is down, and you feel like you could finish them if you have a little extra, you don't have that time. Well, now I do, so I feel that I'll be able to get the finish this time.
Stylistically, though, it seems to be the perfect sort of matchup for you, one that maybe you've been dreaming of. Although he did look very impressive in his last fight, a lot of people were thinking maybe he was on the downward skid of his career, but it just seems like a guy that has traded in heavy wars in the past seems perfect for Artem Lobov.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think he hasn't been, losing it. I mean, he lost a few fights to very, very good guys. One of them, who is a champion at the moment, Max Holloway. So, that's nothing to be ashamed of. So I'm just happy that I'm able to take on this guy at the top of his game, who is hungry, and he wants to prove to people as well that he still belongs at the top, and so do I. So let's see what happens.
Where, you would have preferred a European destination. I know with London this weekend, it would have been nice to share the card with Gunny. But this is the sort of thing that maybe you would have dreamed of as well, fighting around the world. As a huge fan of the country music scene, Artem, you're finally going to the home of country music, Nashville, Tennessee.
I might bust out a few of my Elvis moves as well, post-fight celebration. Yeah, to be honest, obviously, European scene, yeah, it makes sense because it's just easier, to get to, an hour flight to London and the same time zone and everything. But, I don't mind. I've been all over the world at this stage. I fought in Amman, Jordan, and in Las Vegas, everywhere really. So, it doesn't really bother me that much.
You seem to be taking something into this camp as well, maybe that you had learned from experience with the Connor camps. You're heading out 2 weeks before to Nashville just to get acclimatised, just to get used to everything. But you're also in the position to be able to bring a top prospect like Richie Smullen with you out and show him those experiences long before maybe he signs or sets foot into the UFC.
Well, this is one of the benefits, again, of fighting in the UFC. Financially, fighting in the UFC allows you to go out to these places, a few weeks before, bring a couple of sparring partners. Peter Quilly is also coming with me, as well as Richie Smullen. So, yeah, it just makes it that much a little bit better. It's okay to arrive there on the week of the fight as well, but I think if you have the financial resources to do that, then why not do it?
Exactly. If we're just talking about maybe the grander scale of these things, this is the biggest fight of your career, but you've always been a guy who's very active, but just seemingly like the matches just didn't get made quick enough for you. You know, maybe a little bit longer of a wait between your last fight and this one than you would have wanted. Are you planning just hitting the ground running straight away again afterwards, or are you going to take a bit of time?
Well, even this time I kept asking for matchups, but it just didn't happen. But obviously, with the matchup that I got and given the fact that it's the main event, it all made sense then, and I didn't mind the wait. But after this one, I would like to get back in there as soon as possible. I like to stay active. I love fighting. I do this for the love of the game, for the love of the sport. So I want to do it, as often as I can.
Lovely. Two quick things before we go. One of the other original horsemen, I suppose you could say, of SBG, Chris Fields, he spoke about his legacy fight recently, and that would have been against Liam McGarry. Those are the fights that you get into the sport to get. Do you think that this is your defining legacy fight, or is there still something more to come?
I think I'm going to have many, many more fights. Well, I hope so anyway. But this one is certainly important for me. I mean, this is the fight that's going to prove that I belong at the top. After I beat Cub Swanson, there will be no more questions why I'm in the UFC and where do I belong. Everybody's going to know that, Artem Lobov is a force to be reckoned with, and I will be in that title run.
Exactly, and then from that, it's because you're fighting someone who maybe people would think, why is Cub taking that fight? He has a lot to lose in this position. You feel that it's just an automatic swap. You go into his position, and then your next fight is guys from his position upward.
Absolutely, and also, in this game, you can be eligible for whatever you want, title shots you want or anything. But the thing is, if you don't show up, then none of this matters, as we've seen before. And knowing Aldo's history of not showing up, there's a big chance that he never shows up in his own hometown, and Max is left waiting. And if I'm there after my win against Cub, who else are they going to call? It's going to be me. That's the way I see it. That's going to be my little bit of Mystic Mac. Whether it works out or not, just wait and see, We have not long to wait.
Artem, thank you very much for the time. We'll see you in Nashville.
Thanks a million.